Hey everyone, welcome back to another Vitae review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Wuerhosaurus. This figure is a re-release of the original that came out a couple years ago, but this new version comes with a brand new base and a slightly updated paint scheme. I got this figure from Lana Time Shop. It retails for around $30, but there's also an option to get a baseless version which will save you around $8 to $10. And I'll leave a link in the description to Lana Time Shop if you want to pick this figure up for yourself. So before we take a closer look at this figure, let's just go over the packaging really quick. It comes in this nice window display box. You got Wuerhosaurus on the bottom, 135 scale scenario set, and then turning the box around, you get some nice artwork of Wuerhosaurus on the back. Now, there's one thing about the packaging I am not a fan of. You can see right here on the window, I have a lot of paint rub. That is because, let me just take out the plastic tray the figure comes in. The way the figure sits in the tray, you can see that this shoulder spike sticks out pretty far, and it was pressed up against the window of the box, and during shipping must have just bounced around and it rubbed off a lot of paint, and it actually kind of warped the shoulder spike on this figure. But if you, as you can see, there's a lot of room back here to maybe extend that bubble in a little bit to protect this shoulder spike right here. I just find that a little bit unfortunate. As soon as I took it out of the box, I saw this paint rub. It's really not too noticeable on the tip right here, but it is something to be worried about. You can see it did warp the spike up a little bit. So enough about the packaging. Let's take a closer look at this figure. So let's start with a nice 360-degree view of the Wuerhosaurus. It comes in the typical, green, red, orange paint scheme that a lot of Stegosaur figures come in, which I feel is kind of overdone, but it does look quite nice on this figure. I like how the green mixes with that black striping. The color scheme is very similar to the original figure. It seems like they added a little bit more washes on this figure, and they added some black markings along the plate. I don't own the original figure, but from the pictures I've seen online, the plates look pretty plain, and I'm glad they added a little bit more detail to them. The only other problem I have with this paint scheme is it's a glossy coat. It gives the figure a very shiny and plasticky look. I kind of wish they used a matte finish to give it a more natural look. But other than that, I think the figure looks great. It's always nice to get a different Stegosaur species in your collection. And plus, the base on this figure is absolutely phenomenal looking. So let's do a couple of quick measurements. If you measure the figure along the curve of the tail, this figure is 7.5 inches long, and from the top of the highest plate on its back, about 2.25 inches tall. So Wuerhosaurus in real life was around 23 feet long. So with those measurements, that'll put this figure somewhere in the 136 scale range. And let's just take a quick look at the beautiful base that comes with this figure. This base is made out of polystone, so it does have some nice weight to it. And just look at all the texture and paint apps on this base. It gives it a very natural look. You even have some theropod footprints sculpted in here and here along the grassy area. And I just love the blend in the colors. This feels like a really nice premium base you get with a high-end statue. And you also have some plants growing right here. Now this is just like dried sphagnum moss, so it is very brittle. So if you get one of these bases, you don't want to really touch these because they will break off. One of the other figures I got, the whole box is just filled with broken pieces of sphagnum moss, and it's just an absolutely beautiful looking base. And on the bottom, you do have a nice felt bottom to allow it to slide nicely on a flat surface. So yeah, really well done. I think Vitae does some of the best bases out of any company, and figures that are not glued to their bases and don't have peg holes. I'm always a fan of that. It adds, sorry, Mr. Wuerhosaurus. It always adds a nice depth to your collection because of that nice diorama look with these bases. So let's zoom in and take a look at some of the finer details on the figure, starting with the head. The head is nicely sculpted. The eye is painted in black, and what looks like light is reflected in there. That's actually a white dot that is painted directly onto the eye to give the illusion that light is reflecting from it. And then the beak is painted in brown. You can clearly see the nostril is picked out in black paint. You can barely make out the ear canal at the back of the skull. And then going down to the neck, you can see some nice blending of all those different shades of green, along with those black markings along the back and hind legs. Going down to that shoulder spike, the shoulder spike is nicely sculpted. You got some really nice detail in there, some nice dry brushes and washes to bring out all the detail on the root. And like I said earlier, you can see that this shoulder spike is a little bit warped. It really didn't rub off too much paint. The other side looks like it just has a little bit more paint, but like I said, that's just a packaging issue. And then going down to the plates on his back, you see the plates of Wuerhosaurus are very short. That's because the few plates that we know of this animal, they are broken. A lot of the reconstruct the animal with the broken plates. The actual shape of the plates are not known yet, but there are some nice artistic reconstructions with the larger plates. The animal actually looks much more like Stegosaurus with those reconstructions. It'd be pretty cool if like they did like a version, 2.0 of this figure with the larger plate reconstruction. And then going down to the body, you can see some nice dry brushing to bring out all those folds and wrinkles along the midsection of this figure. And then going down to legs. Legs are nicely sculpted, some nice muscle detail. The toe claws are painted in brown. And another nice touch on this figure, you can see they gave it kind of like a brown wash on the base of all the feet on this figure to give the impression that this animal is walking through mud. I always enjoy those little lifelike touches. And then turn the figure over, you can see the underside is painted mostly in white, and you have a little bit like a pinkish wash over there to bring out all the detail and shadowing around the hind legs and belly. And then you can see some osteoderm sculpted in. They start right about where the shoulder spike is, and they continue over the hip, and they go down to about the halfway point of the tail. Going to the hind legs, you can see some of that black striping done here. A little bit more dry brushing to bring out all that detail on the hind leg. And then the plates, they did add, some black markings on here compared to the original version with these, which is a plain orange. Upon closer inspection, kind of looks like these were just done with like a black Sharpie. Kind of looks, a little cheap and amateurish up close, but from a distance, I think that coloration does work pretty well. And then going down to the tail, you can see the Thagomizer is nicely sculpted. The figure is made out of kind of like a soft, flexible, like PVC material, so you don't have to worry about these breaking off. They're not even sharp. They're kind of a little bit rounded. Kind of reminds me of like how Safari does their figures. So all in all, I think it's a really nice Stegosaur figure. Like, my biggest issue with the paint scheme is the glossiness of it. You can see the studio lights are just reflecting off this figure, and I just feel like that glossy coat kind of makes the figure look cheaper than what it is. I would much prefer a matte finish on here. I actually have some matte clear coat finish. I might just give this figure a quick spray down and see if that takes away some of the glossiness. Alright, let's move on with some comparisons. Here it is with some other figures from Vitae. First up, here it is with their Sinraptor. And next up is their Chilantiosaurus. And next up is their Stegosaurus. Now, those last three figures I just shown, Vitae did re-release them, and those figures do come with bases and I think slightly updated paint schemes. I'm just not going to spend another $30 each just to get the bases. I'm quite happy with the original releases. And here is one of their new figures. Here it is with their Ginyu Pelter, which I think is an absolutely fantastic figure. And we can't do Vitae comparisons without showing the big boy himself. Here it is with their Giganotosaurus, which is still a really, really impressive looking piece. And because everyone loves seeing this figure compared to everything else, here it is with the PNSO Tyrannosaurus Rex. And my figure is starting to lean because I left him off his display stand when I was doing another review and kind of forgot about him. And now he's really, really leaning forward, so I got to get him back on his stand. And because I always like taking this figure out, here it is with the Rebor Stegosaurus. And let's do a few other Stegosaur figures. Here it is with the PNSO Chungkingosaurus. And next up is PNSOs, as I'm just like toppling Stegosaur figures. Here it is with PNSO's Tajangosaurus. And next up is the Collectae Gigant Spinosaurus. And next up is the Batat Dacentruus. And next up is the PNSO Maragaya. I could pull the camera back because I'm trying to do something here. Here it is with the Maragaya. And next up is the Safari Limited Stegosaurus. And if you have all these figures lined up, you get a nice Stegosauria cladogram here, starting with Chungkingosaurus and ending with Wuerhosaurus. So it's pretty cool that we have all these great Stegosaur species now to add to our collection. We kind of felt like Stegosaurus did not get enough attention, but over the last couple of years, we've got some pretty cool figures from various companies. So final thoughts on this Wuerhosaurus. I think it's a cool little Stegosaur figure. It's always nice to get different Stegosaur species to add to your collection. And I think Vitae did a great job on this figure. My only real complaint is the glossy coat they used on it. It just gives the figure really shiny and kind of like cheap look in my eyes. So maybe somewhere down the line, maybe they'll switch over to a matte finish to give it a little bit more lifelike look. But other than that, I think it's a great figure to add to your collection. And like I said at the beginning of the review, I got this figure from Lana Time Shop. Link is in the description if you want to get this figure for yourself. So that will do it for the review. I just have a few more figures I need to catch up on, so be on the lookout for those reviews in the near future. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.